Hello, welcome to another IMUNES basics tutorial. In this one I'll be showing you various tools and options that I haven't had the chance to really explain yet. Let's start with the three options that I don't use very often. The first one is align to grid. If for some reason I want to neatly arrange a group of nodes on the canvas, I can click on Tools, Align to Grid, and this will happen. It might not be spectacular, but it can be useful in certain situations. The next two options are Auto Rearrange All and Auto Rearrange Selected. They essentially do the same thing, but the first one applies to all the nodes on the canvas, while the second one only affects the selected nodes. So when I click on Auto Rearrange All, you'll see that all the nodes start moving and adjusting their positions in relation to each other. I can also add or remove links or nodes, and they will readjust accordingly. Let's remove IPv6 addresses because they're in the way. Okay, when you're satisfied with how it looks, just click the Select tool and left click outside the canvas. Now let's open a new file. We'll create a simple topology to have something to work with. Okay, for example, and if you notice the created subnets, the first one is 10.0.0/24 and the second one is 10.0.10/24. If I were to create another subnet, it would be auto-configured as 10.0.20/24. However, you can change the address range of the next created subnet by going to Tools, IPv4 or IPv6 address pool. For example, if I set this to 20 and this here to 8 and create some link, I would get 20.0.0/8 and 21.0.0/8 subnets. The MAC addresses of all the nodes start at a certain value and increase one by one. The MAC address of this first created interface is the default one, so 42.00, etc., etc. And the last interface created is this. It will have the highest MAC address. If you want to randomize newly created MAC addresses, just click on Tools, Randomize MAC bytes, and the last 3 bytes will be set to random values, and every time you create a new interface, MAC address will increase from there. So let's check this one out. It's F3.04.01. When creating routers, the default routing protocol is set to RIP using the Quagga tool, as you can see on this router 1 router. However, you can change this in the Tools, Routing Protocol Defaults menu. You can disable or enable RIP OSPF either for IPv4 or IPv6 addresses, or you can disable routing protocols and choose static routes, which need to be manually set inside each node configuration, each router. The XORP tool is no longer available, so I'll just skip it. When a new router is created, it follows the newly created defaults. Now let's create a new canvas and add a few more nodes to explore some additional options. You can, instead of using the link tool to connect nodes, you can do the same with the create link tool options. Link to, so just point to any canvas and select a node to connect to. The selected option is used differently. First you need to select all the nodes that you wish to connect, choose the topology type, and it will automatically create the links between all of the nodes. There are a couple of options available and they're pretty straightforward, so just play with them. Next up we have a move to option, which allows you to move a node to a different canvas. For example, like this, canvas 0, and the delete option, which of course removes the node. You can also choose to remove IPv4, IPv6 addresses from the selected nodes, or IPv4, IPv6 renumber for the selected nodes. This will renumber them accordingly. Now let's move to an existing topology and explore more options in the exec mode. Sometimes it's easier to use host names instead of IP addresses. That's why IMUNES has an option to create a hosts file on every node, which contains IP address hostname pairs for every other node in the experiment. Enabling the auto-generate etc hosts file option activates this feature. So in this topology the option is already enabled. So when I started the experiment, every node now has its own hosts file configured. This feature is not suitable for extremely large topologies as it's slow and doesn't handle nodes with the same host name properly. So it's basic but still useful. If I check the hosts file in this node, you can see that all the nodes are listed, and this allows me to ping PC1, for example. But unfortunately, as I said, we don't know whether this PC1 is pinged or this one is, until we check it in more detail. While in exec mode, you'll see some new options on the right click on the node. Let's start with the start, stop, restart buttons, which are used to enable or disable the node. These buttons are useful when you want to emulate a node being offline, or when you want to apply configuration changes made in the GUI to the live node. You can also control different services running on the node through the services menu. I'll cover more about services in a later tutorial. If you change the interface's MAC address, IP address, or MTU live from the terminal using the ifconfig tool, you can mirror these live settings to the GUI by selecting Settings, Import Running Configuration. For example, if I set the IP address to this 10.01.222/24 and click on this option, you can see the updated IP address reflected on the canvas. Opening the terminal on the node can be done by double-clicking on the node. However, this will launch the default shell, which is CSH or C shell. If you prefer to use a different shell, such as bash, you can choose it in the right-click, shell window, bash. Snooping on any interface can be done using the Wireshark or TCP dump tool. Like this. You can also open the pre-installed web browser, Midori, or a mail client using Sylphid, or using the bottom two options. Okay, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, comments or ideas for future tutorials, please leave them in the comment section, and thanks for watching. Bye!